Nice to see you. My name is Gunther Sonnenfeld. I've been a friend of Simon and Maria's for a few years now, and I welcome the opportunity to create this video and broadcast to you down in Brazil. Um, a quick bit on my background. I've sort of played for many years at the intersections of technology, media, and business. Been involved in several startups, had a hand in the development of over about 50 ventures, worked for a few large companies. So it's kind of run the gamut, but and my responsibilities have varied, but I've primarily been operating in those spaces and really just kind of focusing on how information systems can transform organizations, and at the human level, how people can be more empowered to do their jobs better, whether that's through types of media or processes that enable the way that they develop their own skills and their relationships to their colleagues and partners. Um, at the end of last year, I and two other people, Tirza Hollenhorst and Philip Horvath, started Lumen. And basically, we started this innovation group because we recognized that there was a gaping hole in the way innovation practices were conducted, namely around human development, which is kind of ironic in a way. Um, and this was a culmination of insights that the three of us had developed over a combined, I don't know, 40, 45 years of experience between us, maybe more actually, where we were seeing all these tools and processes being introduced into the mix, but again, very little being done around how humans can actually interact differently in different organizational settings, and more importantly, how they would take those learnings and evolve for themselves and alongside of the organization itself or within the organization. And so that was really the basics of it. And what we've brought to bear in terms of tools and applied approaches are what we think are a fairly interesting mix of storytelling and data tools, as well as experience design tools. And what I mean by that is, you know, the types of things that we can do when people are in a room or in a setting together from different disciplines and different backgrounds, and the ways that we bring out their creativity and the ways that they generate ideas to either solve problems or to create totally new paradigms of one sort or another. And that's really the idea. And the three of us have worked with a lot of different organizations, from startups to nonprofits to Fortune 100s to, you know, policy coalitions. Pretty much we worked across every industry. And the thread is the same throughout, right? Every organization needs to understand themselves better. They need to understand the markets better. And they need to, of course, operate in a totally different way. In the backdrop behind all of this is kind of an interesting transitional period that we're all facing, as I'm sure you are down there. America and Europe tend to be good proxies for global change, although, of course, the cultural nuances are very different everywhere. But be that as it may, at least in America, what we're seeing is a pretty massive consolidation and stratification both of wealth and resources. So the income inequality thing is one aspect of it that's more fairly obvious. But what's happening at the corporate level is most companies that are sitting on IP and patents and other forms of intellectual property are consolidating. They're actually either buying companies out of the market or they're divesting assets, and through corporate venture arms are investing in smaller businesses to offset infrastructural risk. So contrary to what people say about the middle market, even though the middle market effectively has almost gone away in a sense, these corporations are actually in a reverse process investing back into the market by default, because they don't want to own all the infrastructural risk. So they have suppliers and they have value chains and they have people operating within them, but at the same time, they would rather operate a business where they don't actually have to hire as many people internally and train them, and where they can have basically an ecosystem, if you will, distribution ecosystem, where they can own these different parts of the process, but not necessarily the people or the machinery that comes along with it. And you're seeing this across industries. So effectively, corporations and organizations are becoming holding companies with very, very structured IP, and these kind of very refined and new and improved hub and spoke models. Not dissimilar from what management consultancies have been doing for a very long time. Although the difference is their capabilities in partnering and building are probably far more advanced and a lot more agile in a sense. And so we're seeing that. And then on the other side, in the startup realm, there's actually quite a lot of capital available. I mean, the central banks have been printing a lot of money, so there's no shortage of cash. But where that cash is allocated is also quite stratified. So there's a lot of hype around Silicon Valley and some of these other areas. But the reality is the investment in the amount of companies, small businesses in particular, that are younger than 5 years, is very, very, very tiny, and sort of relegated to a very select few people that actually have impact in the market and can influence those conditions. And I mention this because what's happening there is on the other side of the coin is a very interesting challenge, which is organizational development. So when you talk to people in innovation circles, particularly around startups, there's a lot of mention of lean methodologies, agile methodologies, right? But what's often ignored is culture. So they'll talk about MVP, minimum viable product. They'll talk about all the ways you can kind of growth hack and get to market and scale and all that stuff, but they're not talking about building cultures for the future. And I would argue that in a day and age in which products and services, particularly through technology, can become more commodified at an accelerated pace, right, at an exponential rate, you're basically left with people and their skills, their adaptive skill sets. So in other words, what I think these startups are totally missing is building organizations of the future where their people can constantly adapt to the shifts in the market, supply those markets with very needs-based types of offerings, high value, high touch, horizontal scale, where they're partnering with select partners and they're identifying these needs proactively and serving them into the market, as opposed to saying, well, I've got this new killer app and it disintermediates banks or it disintermediates, taxi services or what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but it's still based on an older model, which is, we're gonna come up with a cool idea, we're gonna substantiate it, we're gonna validate it in the market, and then we're gonna put it out there and we're gonna tell people how great it is, as opposed to talking with a major corporation as a partner who has the market research and R&D capabilities already in tow, boots on the ground, and getting from them the insight as to what the market really needs, and leveraging that infrastructure, and then going out and developing a product around it. Now, there are a number of examples. Procter Gamble is one with Centrifuge in Cincinnati that are actually doing this. So with Centrifuge, a few years ago, one of the P&G high-level engineers and executive there basically was on a sabbatical, and he was given a budget of, I don't know, $60 million or something like that. And basically they said, look, we want you to draw in venture investment into the local region. We want to build up the local ecosystem. We're going to buy a building, and we're going to fill that building with local resources in a true hub and spoke capacity, sort of like a coalition co-op. And long story short, they incubated something like 26 or 28 businesses in the first 18 months. And I think by the first 2 years, it was up to 48. And it was highly successful because the model works. Again, you have a corporate structure with a ton of valuable resources and understanding markets and stuff through data and research and legal and everything else. And then basically allowing startup entrepreneurs to come into the fray and build businesses based on that knowledge, essentially, and for them to conjoin, align on resources and vision and value, and build these new companies. And it's fascinating when you think about it. So I think the co-op model is going to emerge more and more over time. And I think with respect to Lumen, I think what we want to be able to do is to keep providing people with tools, adaptive tools, emergent tools, new ways of looking at how the human condition factors into the horizontal, not the vertical scale, but the horizontal scale of businesses, right? And just to reiterate what I mean by horizontal scale is vertical growth markets are going away. We've topped out. I mean, if you take financial investment, for example, virtually in every asset class, if you look at everything from investment banks to family offices to how traditional institutions invest in things now, there's no more growth basically for wealth. Essentially, they've topped out in terms of the asset class. There's just nothing more to squeeze or profit from. So now things by default are spreading out distributively across industries, right? And it's based on needs, it's based on partnership, it's based on coalition, it's based on value alignment. All of which to say that, again, you need the human component to be reinforced so that organizations can not only scale horizontally, but they can manage smaller teams, which are more efficient anyways, right? And so that they can get really, really smart and really scrappy about building skills development and learning from those types of partnerships. It's no longer about reading something in a textbook and then going out and implementing it. You have to literally learn on the ground and see what's happening out there to really understand where the market opportunities, which ties back into holonomics. And so I personally connected with Simon and Maria over, well, first of all, the book is wonderful, but their whole approach to business and innovation is very much aligned with my own experiences and my own vision, if you will, for how organizations can thrive going forward in this sort of new paradigm. And holonomics very much touches upon the value of experience, the way of seeing holistically, the way of applying the way you see things, and the way you acquire knowledge and spread them across an organization, and the way you share. And it's also very much based on human value and aspects of spirituality, which cannot be which can no longer be ignored. And it's just again, a very holistic way of looking at the world, and where business literally is a lens into the human condition. And I think that's very true. So it's wonderful to be able to connect with people of like minds, but of complementary skills and interests. I mean, I'm not an academic, and so it's great to have people like Simon and Maria and others diving deep into not just the philosophical, but the applied uses of these types of approaches, and to bring back a lot of long-standing knowledge that's actually quite old. It's been around for a long time, but it kind of lost its footing, if you will, with the way the Industrial Revolution, post-industrial revolutions kind of came about, and kind of where we're at right now, where we're really at a critical juncture of our own humanity. We've got, I think, the singularity and the artificial intelligence, the AI narratives are sort of countervailed by this idea that human beings are kind of waking up to their own potential, their own power, their own consciousness. And those two things could align, but they're currently at odds, at least in the way that they're being developed as narratives. In one construct, you have sort of this heavy reliance on predictive outcomes and automation and all that stuff, which is fine. I think that serves its purpose in terms of simulating experiences or showing people what outcomes could look like. And then on the other side of that, or alongside of it, is just this deeply human experience where people are challenged to think about who they are and why they exist in the world and what their purpose is. And if you bring that all back into the organization at a very fundamental human level, there's so much value to be developed and derived and extracted and reinvented, tied to how people think about themselves, the kind of esteem they carry, how mind-heart filled they are, how much they think about other people, the kind of empathy that they have. And all of this translates into organizational success. It has to. If you're not constantly looking over your shoulder or distrustful of the people, of your colleague or coworker right next to you, I mean, think about the impacts that can have on collaboration and co-creation and product development, and being able to actually understand what your customers want and to relate to them on that human level. That's what it's all about. So, Holonomics is very much about that. It is about that. It's what we're doing at Lumen on the innovation side, and really figuring out new ways to kind of blend people, platform, and purpose in a way where we can pretty much go into any organization and help people enact their vision. We're firm believers in enabling the vision, the inherent, the intuitive vision of people that are within organizations. It's not about us going in and providing directives or telling them what to do or showing them innovation in a box. It has nothing to do with that. It's about going in and listening and designing an experience with those stakeholders where their creativity, their ideation powers, their knowledge can come out in spades, and where we can all witness what that transformation looks like, and then turn that into a business or a market or an organizational opportunity or series of opportunities. And and to build relationships with those organizations. It's not about just coming in, showing up, and having an engagement and said, okay, see you later, good luck. For this to work, the sustainability of those efforts are very much tied to a long-standing relationship between us and the organizations and the divisions within the organizations themselves. And we hope that one day, even if organizations or large companies hire less people, our hope is that the sustainability of aspect will be such that the the people that they source as source and solution will be long-standing relationships. So it won't matter if you're an employee per se. You are going to have a relationship with organization X to do Y, based on this aligned intentionality, these values, and these types of things. So, in a nutshell, that's what I've got, and I look forward to answering any questions and to coming down to see you. And thanks for your time.